Hi everyone. So one of the first videos on this channel that I posted, I think it was maybe in 2019, maybe early 2020, was a video about why we need to work with our nervous system to heal as opposed to fighting against it. And I really shared a lot of the philosophy that has become the foundation of the brand and the approach we take at whole body healing. And this philosophy really culminated in my first support protocol, Befriend, which is featured in my book, as well as in all my courses and in all the intensive coaching programs that I do. So before we do anything like nutrition or detox or circadian rhythm work, any of the other wonderful protocols that help support your body to recovery from chronic illness, I make everyone befriend their nervous system and their symptoms. So, because I have really updated this protocol and written it out more formally and just, thought about this whole topic a lot more since then, I thought I would do an update of that video and why it is so important to befriend. So, um, first of all, I will say that I actually initially got this concept in a bit of a download moment that I had way back in early 2017. And this is the experience I had that actually spurred me into doing the healing work that ended up getting me to recovery from my chronic illnesses. So, from the end of 2015, basically all through 2016 and into the beginning of the year 2017, I was struggling with very severe, debilitating symptoms that I could not figure out. And they were manifesting all over my body. I've talked about the symptoms I was having in my healing story quite a bit, so I won't go into it too much, but I really felt like I was dying and my whole body was breaking down. And I would tell people, like, kind of jokingly, but actually not really, like, my body's trying to kill me. And I think a lot of people have that same feeling when they're dealing with very severe chronic illness, especially things like mast cell activation syndrome, which can feel so acutely intense when you are really in a serious flare of symptoms. And it really felt like that. And I would constantly be just like crying and in despair and just like asking my body, like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you trying to hurt me? Why can't you just react to things like a normal person? Why are you constantly having these massive reactions to things that should not be a big deal? Like, what is wrong with you? And that was really the attitude I have. I felt like I was broken, I was damaged, something was deeply, deeply wrong with me. I had this very visceral sense like something is so wrong with me and I can't figure out what. Um, and it just sent me into this spiral of, going to doctors and going to allergists. And, eventually I did get the mast cell activation syndrome diagnosis. And so then I was going on Facebook groups and message boards and Googling and, all the things that now I really encourage people not to do, right? And just like hearing all these horrifying stories of people, I was following mast cell hashtags on Instagram and finding people with this condition that were, in really, really bad shape. And just like, okay, well, I guess this is my life, but just feeling so much despair and hopelessness about it. And then I had a really visceral experience when I was doing nervous system regulation work. And, ironically enough, at this time, I was a therapist specializing in trauma healing and nervous system regulation. And I was learning methods of somatic trauma healing. I had just started a certification process to become a TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises provider. So I was very much deep in this nervous system regulation and somatic healing world. And as a part of the training for that certification, you have to do some pretty intensive weekend trainings where you are tremoring 2 to 3 times a day for like 3 days in a row. So basically, for those not familiar with TRE, you were doing this very intense somatic trauma healing, nervous system regulation work. You kind of get a crash course in it. And that started for me at the beginning of 2017, that training, when I was really just in the depths of despair around, what my life was going to be like in the long term. And things just kept getting worse and worse and worse for me. And I was in this training and I was tremoring, and I had this experience that I can only describe as my nervous system talking to me directly. And I think doing this nervous system regulation work, my nervous system finally had a vehicle to really come into my conscious awareness and really share some wisdom with me. And basically, that message was, "Hi, I have been trying to save your life. Um, and you keep blocking me with everything you are doing." And it was this very, again, very clear, visceral experience where it was like my nervous system said this to me. And it just kind of was like, oh, oh, like I see what's going on. Like my symptoms are not actually trying to kill me, right? My symptoms are not trying to make me miserable or trying to make me afraid. My symptoms are actually a side effect of my body trying to save my life. And I became suddenly overwhelmed with this deep sense of gratitude towards my symptoms and towards my illness and towards my conditions, because suddenly I realized, like, whoa, all of these things that have been making me so miserable, I've only been perceiving the very surface level of what is happening, right? I have not been understanding the deep processes that have been happening in all the different systems of my body. And all of these symptoms have actually been attempts to get my attention and to save my life. And I walked out of that training a changed person. And I will say I've never been the same since. And this was actually the weekend that I quit drinking alcohol. I've been sober from alcohol ever since. And this was the weekend that I decided, you know what? I don't care what it takes. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to recover. And I just decided I'm going to completely surrender to the process. I don't care how intense it is. I don't care what I have to give up. I don't care how I have to change. I need to actually listen to my nervous system, because I felt so privileged that my nervous system was finally talking to me and helping me understand what was going on. And so it wasn't long after that that I started working with a very skilled naturopathic doctor, and that I met Mary Reddick, the nutritionist who has ended up becoming my primary mentor in this world. And yeah, things really started changing for me after that. Not to say I didn't ever fall back into old patterns of how I had felt before. Believe me, and those of you with these conditions know, when you are having a flare, things can get really scary and you can get very anxious and you can get into very dark spirals, and it's not like that never happened again, right? So I definitely had my ebb and flow of communication, I will say, with my nervous system in the years to come. But honestly, the longer I have been doing this healing work and the more I have gotten to know my nervous system, the more I have been able to approach the dips and the flares and the ebbs and the flows and the detoxes and the Herxheimer reactions and all the things as, okay, my nervous system is talking to me. My nervous system is telling me what is going on. My nervous system is trying to do something really big and important right now, and that can feel very uncomfortable. And that really is what ended up becoming the guiding light to my healing journey, is learning to trust my body, that nothing was actually wrong with it. When we have chronic illness, it is because the body has gotten stuck in a feedback loop, and it can keep us alive, but we are in a compromised state, right? So we have so many environmental stressors that we are dealing with in the modern world, things we never dealt with before. That is why in history, right, you certainly see acute situations happen, right? You see, signs of nutrient deficiencies when there was an acute famine somewhere, right? Or you see someone with a lot of trauma injury, a skeleton where someone clearly got, taken out by a mammoth, right? Something like that. Like you see acute injury, right? You maybe see injury from warfare, right? You see these acute episodes, but you don't really see chronic disease, right? This is a modern phenomenon, primarily the last 200 years, although, of course, in different periods of history when nutrient deficiencies have gotten very pervasive for various historical reasons, you start to see these things creep in. But it really has just skyrocketed, particularly the last 100 or 50 years, even, right? But it is a modern phenomenon due to the immense amount of stressors that we are seeing in our environment. We have massively high toxicity rates in terms of pesticides and heavy metals and solvents and all the forever chemicals and plastics that we are encountering every day that we never really encountered before, right? We have massive amounts of chronic stress. We have intergenerational trauma, stemming from these brutal world wars that we have experienced, and all the fallout intergenerationally from these massive cultural traumas. Um, and just the demands of modern life, right? The amount that we are expected to work, the financial pressures we are under, social media, the effect of artificial lights on our bodies, right? Of not being as connected to nature, of being in these um, contained boxes with artificial light and all these EMF radiation that we are exposed to. It just and then all the processed food, right? Like we are not getting nearly as much nutrients, but so many more calories than we ever did before. And so we've got all this high calorie malnutrition, massive amount of toxicity, all these environmental stressors we never had before. Our bodies are having to deal with more than they ever have. And when we start really understanding that, we can start feeling so much compassion for our body. And I think some people get to a place of despair like this, like, how could I ever heal in the face of all this? But you know what? People do. And people have, because we are also an incredibly resilient species. I mean, the kinds of recoveries that people have had from devastating illness is nothing short of miraculous, right? The things that people can survive are absolutely miraculous. And so we need to have faith and respect for our toughness, for our survival mechanisms, right? um, we can bounce back from a lot, but we need to pull away as many of those stressors as possible to allow that innate resilience to blossom. So that is really the perspective at whole body healing, right? Is that your body is healing all the time, no matter what, by default. It's just a matter of, do the stressors outweigh your innate resilience, right? And what can we do to bolster that innate resilience? And what can we do to reduce the stressors, right? And so that's why my 6 support protocols are so powerful, because it really takes the primary aspects of life that I see affecting people's health the most. And it's like, how can we turn the dial down on these things? It never has to be perfect, right? That's impossible. And it's going to make us more stressed and anxious to think we have to get rid of every single toxin we're ever exposed to. Like, that's not going to happen, right? But we can turn the dial down, right? And maybe bolster the efficiency of our detox pathways a bit. And eventually, we'll start to see something rebalance, right? So that's really the idea, is that to get out of chronic illness, which is a survival state in the body, it's like, okay, I can maintain a homeostasis. I can keep this person alive, right? This person doesn't feel good. They may not be able to get out of bed very much. They may be super depressed and anxious, but they're alive. And that's all the nervous system really cares about in the short term, is, are you going to be alive in 10 minutes? Right? Because that's evolutionarily what we're selected for. Like, did this person survive this much closer to being able to reproduce and pass on their genes, right? So that's what the nervous system really cares about, right? It's programmed for short-term survival. And so if it has to give you symptoms of chronic illness in order to keep you alive, it will. And this is really what we're seeing, is that when we're in the face of all these stressors, of all these nutrient deficiencies, all this high toxicity, the body is going to kind of make shortcuts, right? It's going to say, like, hey, what can I stash over here? And how can I make a shortcut over here? And maybe I'll turn this function off over here. They don't really need that, right? And then, okay, now I can keep them alive for a little bit longer. So we have to think about like our nervous system just like at this control panel, right? With like all these red lights going off, right? Like beeping, being like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on and there's so much that is stressing this body out. Like, what can I do to just keep this person alive, right? And sometimes those shortcuts mean we are going to get chronically ill. And we have to have so much love for our nervous system behind the scenes, trying to figure out how to finagle this like incredibly difficult and complex circumstance that we find ourselves in as humans. And some of us are going to be more susceptible than that, right? Some of us are going to have these slow detox genes, these genetic susceptibilities, or have had more intergenerational trauma or more intergenerational toxicity passed down. There's just so many factors that are going to make certain people the canaries in the coal mine, right? Make certain people more susceptible to succumbing to the effects of all these chronic stressors. And so our nervous systems are working overtime trying to keep us alive. And if we can have that perspective, it's such a game changer because now our nervous system, our body, our symptoms are not our enemies, right? And we can just know, like, okay, all of these things happening in my body, all these diagnoses I have, all these conditions I have, it doesn't really matter what they are, right? They are all just side effects of your body trying to keep you alive. And you can say, okay, thank you. I have so much appreciation. Now, what can I do to help? Right? And it's no longer about taking medications to suppress the symptoms. It's not about what specialist you can see that has some new medication protocol or some new surgery or procedure that is going to suppress symptoms, right? Although sometimes that can be life saving in the short term, so we don't want to be dogmatic about this. But in the long term, what we actually need to do is take away obstacles to recovery, which are these intense systemic stressors that we are experiencing. So when we ask, how can we help? That changes the game. And now our nervous system says, oh, they're listening. Okay, here's what I need, right? And sometimes symptoms will get more specific and more acute during this period. That certainly happened to me, where it was like, okay, I can tell that like as I'm implementing some basic healing practices, my systemic inflammation is starting to go down, but now my acute inflammatory responses are getting more significant and more severe. And again, that did freak me out at first for sure, because I'm like, am I getting worse? Like I'm reacting more intensely to specific things now, right? But then I realized, oh, I just have a clearer pathway of communication to my nervous system because so much of this systemic noise, right, or inflammation is going down. Now it can be so much more specific about what it needs, about what's working, right, about what's not working, about what's too much for me right now, about what I can keep doing. And so it just becomes this conversation between you and your body and you and your nervous system, and your symptoms are the language of your body. And that's what we do at Whole Body Healing is we help you read the language of your body. We help you understand what it's trying to say. Because when you're not used to tuning into your body, or you're always afraid of what you're going to find when you're tuning into your body, you start to lose that language, right? Um, yeah. So this is really what we do, and this is all the befriending protocol. That is the first of the 6 support protocols. And for some people, I know this may seem like a really big jump to go from thinking your body is like out to get you to like, oh my gosh, I have so much love and compassion for everything my body is doing for me, even though I'm bedbound or whatever, right? Like that is a big jump. So what we do in our Befriend protocol is that we help you at least get to neutral, right? We start helping you notice your body sensations and noticing your symptoms from a neutral perspective, right? And we help you learn just basic body scanning and tracking skills so that you are no longer reacting to your symptoms, you're just noticing them. And then you're using grounding skills and self soothing skills and meditation skills like mindfulness and focus meditation skills to help calm yourself down, right? And you just make note and then you move on. So that is all done in our intensive coaching programs. And then we get to a place where we can start to get you to positive, right? So we get you to neutral first, right? Help you take a non reactive, non judgmental stance towards your body. And once you're there, it's easier to then feel that compassion, right? And even feel that gratitude towards your symptoms and towards yourself. And so we do use gratitude practice. We use compassion meditation, and some other practices to help you get to that place where now you actually can feel positive towards the things your nervous system is trying to do for you. And now your body is not your enemy anymore. Now your body is your friend, right? You have befriended your body, you have befriended your nervous system, and now every other thing you do is going to take better and have a more positive effect. So now your therapeutic diet, your detox practices, right? Your light exposure, right? Your circadian rhythm work, all of this kind of stuff is going to hit deeper and be more profound in your recovery. So I hope this was helpful. We are launching our big Rebuild Yourself coaching groups. This is our new thing that we are doing to get as many people onboarded into these protocols as we can. So please check out the website to learn more about that. We are so excited to work with you.